Before we get into this video, check this out. I finally got some heat. I finally took a W on the sneakers app, dude. Look at this, look at this, look at this. Oh, dude, what? What? Look at this heat. I was gonna like do like an official unboxing, but I was like, nah, I need to wear these ASAP. What is going on, everyone? I hope everyone is doing well. In this video, I kind of want to touch on how I come up with my podcast ideas. If you don't know, I have a podcast called You Might Be Surprised. It's a comedy podcast. I enjoy comedy. It's not really a comedy podcast. I feel like it's turning more into like a not news, just like current events and giving my opinions on it, but also trickling in like the things that I enjoy and like. And I also want to start posting more videos. So I was like, how can I post more videos? So I kind of think that this channel more is going to be like podcast tips, my fashion ideas, and things like that. But all that will be discussed further on these videos. But if you like the idea, hit the subscribe button. In this video, I kind of want to touch on my process of how I come up with podcast ideas. As a solo podcaster, it can be very hard to come up with what you want to talk about, especially if you're doing an hour-long podcast. That is a long time. So I kind of feel like I can give some insight after doing now, I think like 65 or 66 episodes, I don't know what episode I'm on, that I have some really good insight as of how you can come up with ideas for your podcast. But before I go into how I come up with my podcast ideas, I'm actually about to record episode like 65 or 66, I forget. I'll look here in a second. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoy, and let me get into recording my newest episode of my podcast.
Idiot Conor McGregor may have lunged at MGK because he thought it was Jake Paul. Conor McGregor has fuck you money. The dude has like, all he does is just show him drinking his proper 12 and going on yachts and all of his fancy watches. It's literally crazy. No one on his team was like, hey, just so you know, you're going to the VMAs and you're gonna see a tall guy who's about 6'4" going out with Megan Fox. That's not Jake Paul. Hey, Conor, I know you like causing scenes, right? I know you like attacking things like freaking people, old people, and buses, dude. Hey, MGK and Jake Paul, they're not the same person. You guys like the fancy lights, huh? I hope I figured since we're talking about podcasts, I should get in my podcast setup. So let's talk about how I find my topics that I like to talk about on my podcast, and maybe by you guys seeing this, it can spark some interest or spark some inspiration for you guys to find some topics for you. Now, each podcast is going to be different. You know, if you have a podcast that's about dogs, or if you have a podcast about food, if you have a podcast about esports, then you guys should be tailoring what I'm telling you towards those topics. Now, depending on what type of podcast you have, the way I search for things or the way I find content may not be the same for you. My podcast is called You Might Be Surprised, and to be honest, there's no goal. Like, a lot of podcasts have goals. They want to get over some knowledge. They want to kind of help you start a business. For me, I just want to be funny, and I want to find things that I'm interested in and share them with the world. That's why it's called You Might Be Surprised. There's two main things that I like to go into to try to find out the topics that I want to talk about. Number one is Twitter. I'm constantly on the For You page. I'm constantly on the trending page. I'm trying to see what's going on in the world. Is there anything crazy that's happening that I can either find a weird angle to make it funny? Is there something that I can try to see that's going on that I can that sparks interest in me and that I'm interested in? That's one of the main things. The only downside about using Twitter is that like everyone is on there, so if something crazy happens like the Met Gala or the VMAs, everyone's gonna be talking about it. So what I like to do is I like to talk about those things as well, but I try to find a different angle than what everyone else is going to be talking about. I also try to follow some very interesting people. I follow a bunch of comedians. I follow a bunch of people in the gaming industry. I follow socialists. I follow not socialists. I follow politicians, just anything that I can really grab inspiration from, I follow. Seeing different things that are going on throughout the world kind of sparks interest in me, and if I see somebody tweet something, or if I see something on my For You page or on my trending page, I'm like, oh, that's funny, let me write that down, and then I spend like half an hour researching it, and I'm like, that's a topic, and that topic I can probably talk about for like 10 to 20 minutes, and that's like, I feel like having 4 good topics that you can really elaborate on for 10 to 20 minutes can really make for a great podcast. The second thing that I really like to look into is TikTok. I love TikTok, and not for like the creating wise or just because you can spend hours upon hours on it. I like it because you see what you like, and what you like is what you see on your For You page, if that made sense. But you get to see the things that you like, and you get to see like these crazy things that are going on. Like you see something crazy that happens. You see a video that blows up and has 1.2 million likes. You see all these things, and chances are you're gonna see some wacky things, and the wacky things are what I look for. I'm constantly saving videos of like these crazy things that are happening. Like I did like 4 podcasts explaining how it's crazy that people can post like hardcore amazing content, and then you have girls online that just shake their butt and get like millions of views. I thought that was the most funniest thing in the world, and I did like 3 podcasts where I like kind of had these videos and I talked about them. Not to mention, TikTok is one of the largest content platforms currently right now. I think actually last month there was more viewers watching TikTok than YouTube, which is crazy. So yeah, just being where everyone's at, where everyone's creating different types of content, you can really get a view on what everyone's kind of interested in, and then you kind of gravitate and you find these videos that are funny, or you find these videos that are interesting, and then you incorporate that into your podcast, whether if it's just making fun of it, whether if it's commenting on it, whether if it's also adding in information. There's tons of things you can do with videos, and I kind of look at it as you're not reacting to the video as much as you're like critiquing it, and especially if you're taking like a comedic route, like you could pull apart some of these videos. It's actually hilarious, like the type of shit that you'll see online on TikTok. So those are the 2 main things that I like to use to kind of formulate how my podcasts go. A bonus thing I will say is I'm constantly on news apps. I'm constantly finding like these crazy things that are going on in the world, and then trying to break them down and find something hilarious about it, find something that I'm interested in, and kind of talk about it that way. Kind of how I structure my podcasts are like, I talk about like my week in the first part, and then I dive into like 3 or 4 funny things that I saw, or 3 or 4 interesting things that I saw, and then I end the podcast. I would also say too, to kind of see what everyone around you is saying. One of the greatest tools that we have is just people. So if you're looking at your friends and your friends are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this guy online did this, this, and this, and you didn't know about it, write that down, and that's great. You can talk about it. And then it's also relatable, because then you can tailor it towards friends, and everyone loves having that human-to-human connection. So it's not just you that finds this one thing hilarious, you know, like you have to pick and choose the things that you think are going to do well, compared to the things that you're just kind of interested in. And you might have like this huge interest that you want to talk about, but that you always should explain to things like what you kind of like. But there's also a point where it's like, do I talk about shoes, or do I talk about the VMAs? Like what's gonna get more clicks, what's gonna get more views? And you can always talk about the shoes It's just make sure that you don't just do a whole podcast about that. Make sure you get to what the people want, especially when you're growing. You know, it's a lot easier to talk about things that you want more when you have some sort of following, in my opinion. So yeah, those are the things that I like to do for creating a podcast. Let me know what you guys think of this video in the comments, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace. What am I doing? I'll just see you guys in the next video. All right, see you guys.